The voice you're hearing is Yianni Mavrakis.
Today is day 6 of rehabbing my 60-year-old bowling alley. Remember that secret room I told you all about? Let me fill you in on the details. I was using it as storage, and when I say storage, I mean a couple hundred light bulbs that are probably older than the center.
He's an influencer and serial entrepreneur in Chicago who at least claims to have bought and invested in several businesses, including recently an aging bowling alley, the Town Hall Bowl in Cicero. He posts frequently, almost every day, and some of his anecdotes about the challenges of opening and maintaining his space rack up hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of views. Some of the aspects of the business he's talked about is maintaining out-of-production equipment, introducing bottle service in the bar area, ways to use an outdated event space, and how to stand apart from the hundreds of other bars and social spaces in Chicago. What Yianni is doing here is called building in public. He's making the process of opening and growing the business into content, and if he succeeds, not only could this help his bowling alley be steadily profitable, it could help him become an Alex Hormozy-style speaker, writer, and big-ticket consultant. Building in public can be a really effective marketing strategy, so why don't more brands, startups, and entrepreneurs do it? Or at least do it well? There's a lot of factors that go into doing this type of content marketing well and successfully, and we're going to get into all of that today and more on Brand Sauce. Welcome to Brand Sauce, where we make strategic marketing simple and a little bit spicy so that marketers and companies of all sizes can focus on doing the right things and the right things well to grow their brands. I'm your host, Joe. I have over 15 years of experience doing agency, corporate, freelance marketing, and I've learned a lot of ways to do this type of work really well in that time. And also through trial and error, I've seen a lot of ways to mess it up. I've been thinking about today's topic a lot, and I think there's a lot of really interesting things to get into. But before we start, let's open up the old mailbag. If you have a question for me, please send an email to brandsaucepod, all one word, @gmail.com. I'm happy to answer your questions. For today, I found this post on Reddit's Ask Marketing board, and I think it's a really interesting thing that opens up a lot of discussion. And I think it's a really challenging question that is going to be relevant to a lot of people and gives us a lot of different things to think about and talk about. So this person writes, "Hi everyone. Me and my wife recently launched our brand where we sell handmade beaded bags. At the moment, sales are almost non-existent. For marketing, we're mainly focusing on Instagram by posting reels and running ads targeted at what we think is the right audience. We also tried influencer marketing, but it did not bring in much sales so far. We would love to hear your thoughts. What would you suggest to grow sales and reach more people? Are there any marketing channels, strategies, or tools you recommend for a small handmade brand like ours? Should we focus more on organic growth or invest further in paid ads? Any advice or personal experience would be greatly appreciated. Thanks in advance." This question's not a surprising one, and it's one that honestly reading it gave me a ton of anxiety because I feel like a lot of small startup brands run into this fairly quickly. And what's telling about this particular question is they're asking more so about channel strategy and not necessarily about content or brand strategy. They don't give a ton of details on what they're talking about or how they're talking about it. And given the niche space that they are kind of playing in with a lot of competition, including from more established handmade craftspeople that you can find on Etsy, there's also a ton of very cheap mass-produced items that could compete with these as well. So I think the first thing that I would ask these owners is who truly is your audience and what's that opportunity, and how did you research that and validate that? Because again, with so much competition, it kind of doesn't matter that what they are selling is handmade because it is in general such a broad commoditized category. So are they able to point to other examples of companies like theirs that with a handmade component are able to appear to be successful? And what is the price point compared to some of the larger, more mass-produced options within this space? Because I think before you can develop a really effective content and channel strategy, you need to understand who your competition is and what the broader category is doing and what trends you are going to be working against or ones where there might be opportunity for you to jump into. Something I think about a lot is the triangle diagram that probably a lot of you see when you're looking up marketing strategies. It's that triangle that has like good, cheap, and fast in it, right? And the adage is you need to pick two of those. You can't have all 3 points covered. I'm probably going to do a video on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram about this in the near future as well. But for this particular startup brand, what I think they need to do is understand where is their opportunity within this broader space of handbags. And I'm not just talking about the handmade ones, but also the mass-produced ones. Are they going to be able to compete on price or on quality or on speed? There's maybe other ways they could think about it, but this is just a very simple framework to start from. What's the thing that they can sort of plant a stake in for their brand that's going to help them stand apart from the other competition. And I think from there, that's when they can start thinking about a content strategy, a channel strategy. Certainly, I think things like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok obviously make a lot of sense in terms of trying to build awareness for their brand. Are there any farmers markets or fairs or flea markets or things like that that they can go to and attend as a crafts person so they can be in a space where there are going to be a lot of maybe more likely buyers than they could potentially find online? Certainly, organic and promoted content makes a lot of sense. Influencer content can be very effective. It can be very expensive as well. It wouldn't necessarily be the first place I'd recommend they start, but I think that should probably stay in the consideration set for them. Certainly like near the top of tactics they think about as they continue to try to grow and invest. But building a brand like this is not going to be easy. It's not going to be quick. It's going to take a lot of time and effort. And unfortunately, I do think there are a lot of brands like this where there is a craft element to it. It can be very hard for those brands to grow and succeed over time. Really good friend of mine from college during the pandemic, she started doing buttons and magnets and doing some clay things, and she's been at it for a couple of years. And I'm very happy to see her be able to be successful and like grow her little brand and business. Now, she has a very specific kind of point of view and aesthetic. Her stuff's really funny. She's a comedy writer. She's hilarious, but she's doing a lot more of this craft stuff now. And she's integrating that personality, that POV into the things that she is creating, so her things stand apart from everything else within the category. When I get to a point where I actually have guests on this thing, I need to be more regular about producing these. I think she'd be a great guest because I think it'd be really fun to talk to her. She's so damn funny. But from that message on Reddit with this couple, I feel like I'm missing all of those things of what helps them stand apart from everyone else. How are they going to stick out? And actually, I think today's topic could be incredibly relevant to them. This idea of building your brand in public. I think that can be a very interesting way to demonstrate to people that point of differentiation. Why should I care about your brand and get them invested instead of just saying, look at this bag, look how pretty it is, look how nice it is, don't you want to buy it? We get messages like that hundreds of times a day, and most of them just wash over us like water. So for this couple, obviously, I hope they are able to find success. I'll maybe take a look at the thread and look at the user and see if they have any updates to share and put in a future episode. But for a small startup brand like that, you need to understand what is your category that you are entering. Where is their opportunity there? Where are the people? How can you reach them and how can you differentiate yourself? Because without those things, it doesn't matter how much money you put into Instagram ads or pre-roll or paid search. If you don't give people a reason to understand why it's different and why they should care and get them excited about it, that's just money down the drain. Again, if you have a question for me, please send an email to brandslashpod, all one word, @gmail.com. I seriously am so happy to answer your question in the future. All right, let's get back to the main part of the episode. When I was poking around and trying to learn a little bit more about Yianni and what he is doing, it actually seems like this might be the second bowling alley he's bought. I was digging through his TikTok and his Instagram a little bit. He's talking a lot about Town Hall Bowl in Cicero, but there was another bowling alley that he had referenced in his content a couple of years ago. So I'm not entirely sure if he has two bowling alleys, if he bought one and sold one, but looking through the content that he is posting every day, it's highly visually engaging. There's some really good storytelling, and it's no surprise to me that it is consistently finding such a large audience despite being a very small, like regional brand and location and destination. And where Yianni is being really successful is where I think you see a lot of smaller brands struggle in this space. He's very consistent. He's turning out a ton of content. It is very well produced. Like, it's simple, but it's thoughtfully edited and framed. There's some fun visual elements. There's always a couple of shots that have spinning bowling balls or pins in the background that he's walking amongst, but he's always setting up, here's a problem I have to deal with, and here's some background on it and what it means for me and how I'm trying to address it. For example, a couple of videos, very interesting. He talks about the history of bowling pin management technology, like the things that pick up the pins at the end of the lane, and how a lot of that equipment is no longer in production. So there's a lot of maintenance that goes into it, and how he has gone and found other people with older machines that he's just bought en masse so that he has materials to pull from to keep his machines updated and maintained.
These are Brunswick's A2 pin setters. They've been running since 1962. That's older than anyone on my team, which makes the parts hard to find and the mechanics who know how to fix these machines even more rare. Here's why we love them. They're bulletproof. Industry legends have said they've gone through floods, power outages, you name it, which is why I'm investing in them rather than replace them with the new string pin setters. This summer, I'm gonna buy 6 more machines off another bowling center. This will allow us to have an inventory of spare parts and reduce the time it takes to keep our machines up and running. It'll also lower our cost instead of buying parts from the manufacturer directly.
I'm never buying a bowling alley. I don't bowl more than once or twice a year at best, but it's still really interesting for me to watch because it's like, oh, this is an aspect of this business that I was completely unaware of. And it's an interesting challenge for you to overcome, and you're demonstrating to me how you are going to do that and what that's going to do for your business. He's also been talking about this big event space that he wants to update, or about decorating the alley with a lot of vintage stuff to try to give it a little bit of a differentiated feel from other bars and places in the area. There's even a big open wall on the outside that he's talked about putting a mural up, and he's been inviting people to tell him in the comments, what should I do with this mural? Same with the event space, same with introducing bottle service, asking people what they think and for their suggestions. So there's a lot of stuff that not only because he's turning out a lot of content, but he's always inviting feedback from the audience he's finding, which I think is just kind of like a perpetual cycle, because then he's able to respond to specific comments that people have left for him or take action based on those suggestions. So there's a lot of benefits that he's realizing through this building in public strategy for his bowling alley. He's generating a ton of interest, like nationally, but that will help funnel in local interest as well. He's gamifying opportunities and conversations so that he's keeping the content machine spinning, and he's able to build community of people who are interested and feel invested in his space. So if they live in Chicago, they might feel more compelled to go hang out, bowl a couple frames, have a couple of drinks. And that's even something for people who come in to visit Chicago, even though Cicero's like on the west side and not close to downtown Chicago proper. Like if someone comes in, maybe they want to go take a trip out and go to this bowling alley because they've seen so much and invested so much energy into whether or not it's going to be successful. So there's a lot of reasons to do this, but also there's a lot of reasons why either I would not always suggest it for a small startup brand, or a lot of the challenges that people who try to do this to promote their brand or business run into. I think the most obvious drawback to this is doing this type of content marketing, especially at volume, to reach enough people to have the algorithms catch it and give you something to talk about and capitalize on. It takes a lot of extra effort. And especially when we're talking about maybe a solo entrepreneur, like me trying to build this consultancy media empire or whatever. I'm not really trying to do that. But the content piece of it takes up so much time. Like if me in this thing was truly my full-time job and I was trying to find clients all the time and do the client work, I wouldn't have time to do a podcast, to do videos for TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. There just wouldn't be time to do it because it's such a time suck. The short form content that I do still takes like a good hour or two per piece, and so many of those will get to a couple hundred views and then just peter out algorithmically. So that's another challenge, is that even if you're developing a lot of this content, are you sure you're going to be able to find and connect with an audience? Yianni's been very fortunate to be able to find a big audience, I think in part because his content is well produced and he's been able to gamify it and make it very interesting. But there are a lot of people who put a lot of effort into it, and maybe the storytelling just isn't there. Maybe they're just not that compelling of an on-screen presence to drag people in and pull them in. Maybe the business they're working on, they haven't found an angle that's actually interesting to talk about. Most people understand what a bowling alley is. A lot of them have probably been to one. So there's some connectivity there. But say you're building up your firm because you're a CPA and you're going out on your own. Is there an angle there that's going to be inherently intriguing and engaging and gripping to people? And not to knock the financial industry, I think there certainly are ways to make that content interesting, but it might be harder than something that has more of a casual enthusiast appeal. If you think your business sits in an industry where there is inherently a way to be compelling and to be interesting, if you think, or if you've proven you're an interesting enough person to be the spokesperson for your company, but you don't think you have enough time to do the content piece of it, that's when these smaller companies, you start to see a dedicated social person or a dedicated content person who's responsible for doing this. Because again, as a solo entrepreneur, not that I do this full time, but I could see very quickly how doing the content promotional piece of it, the content marketing would take up so much of my time, there would be not enough energy or hours in the day to find clients and do the work, to do the pieces that actually build the business. Unless the business you're building is actually content marketing and being an influencer and monetizing that, that's a different story. So say either it makes sense for you to spend a majority of your time doing this style of content marketing, or you are able to have a small team or individual doing that on behalf of your brand. What are the kinds of things you need to keep in mind as you go about doing that? We'll get into it after the ad break. We've made a grave mistake at Thompson Novelty Toilet Paper. We like to think we have our finger on the pulse of culture, but this past holiday season, we were way off base. Cinnamon Surprise will go down as our biggest failure in our company history of novelty toilet papers, but our mistake is your opportunity. We desperately need to clear our inventory, so order now and stock up for the next holiday season, and we're not going to throw in an extra roll. Instead of BOGO, we're talking BOGF. Buy one, get four. With Thompson Novelty Toilet Paper, we'll give your holiday guests something to talk about for sure, no matter how dry the turkey is or how much extra rum run into the fruitcake. Thompson Novelty Toilet Paper, where every swipe makes a smile. Save 10% off with code BRANDSAUCE. This is a fake ad. They're all fake. I'm going to keep doing the ad reads until I get an actual sponsor. But if I keep doing these ad reads, I don't know if anyone's going to want to actually sponsor the podcast. It's fine. All right. I thought that one was okay. Let's get back to the show. You have a category of business, you have a compelling spokesperson, and you have the resources to spend time to develop a lot of content marketing. Where do you start? Having some sort of compelling story for each individual piece as well as an overarching narrative is going to be crucial to success. So a lot of things people will talk about in terms of how to make a good gripping story is going to be Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. There's a couple different articles and slide decks you can get about Pixar's approach to storytelling, or there's even a short video from years ago now with South Park creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker talking about how they write really good, interesting stories. The common thread amongst all of these is setting up the stakes that need to be overcome. So for example, it's not just like, I'm starting this business, let me show you how things work. It's setting up a story for viewers in the vein of, I spent my last $5,000 on this car wash, and if I don't succeed, I'm gonna have to move back in with my grandma. Something of just like, if I don't succeed, here's the danger that is in front of me. A big part of the Pixar framework is setting things up with like, every day things were like this, but then this happened. It's propelling them into some sort of a story. Similar to the Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, there's always like the call to action. That's a similar idea. And for Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they talk about how when they are trying to bridge scenes together, which for content marketing is talking about ideas or setting up the next episode or whatever content you're going to create, instead of this happened and then this happened. Connecting things are just like this, then this, then this, doesn't build on itself. It's not compelling. But when you have it, this happened, but this happened. Therefore, this happened, but this happened. It's just like raising the stakes over and over and over again so the story is getting propelled. So going back to Yianni and the equipment in the bowling alley, he's setting up, I have these machines that make bowling a really pleasurable experience. It's better than the modern machinery, but it's all out of production. If it breaks, I'm screwed. So what am I going to do to help prevent the common breakdowns that do happen? I found this opportunity to buy 10 of these machines from another bowling alley that's closing. I'm going to store them and I'm going to strip them for parts as needed. It's an interesting way to kind of build up like, here's a big potential problem, here's how I'm going to solve it. Throughout each of these individual pieces of content, and as you're serializing it, show how there is transition and change and progress while continually setting up further roadblocks to overcome. Yanni's had a lot of pieces about building out the mural or trying to decorate the alley to make it stand apart from everything else that is an option for people in the Cicero area. He's done a great job at serializing content. I've also seen a lot of brands do a really good job of just doing standalone pieces that cover the entire story so far that kind of bring people in with those same aspects of storytelling. Of, we started the brand because of this, but then we saw this, we overcame it by this, but that did this, but then we did this. The common thread through all of this is how do you demonstrate what those stakes are for your business? And hopefully they're going to be set up in a way that is going to be intriguing and in some way relatable and meaningful to an audience that you're going to find and plug in a way where they're going to be interested eventually, maybe down the road of making a purchase, because that's what'll get them to watch one piece of content and be aware and ready to watch more when it comes back into their feed. Some other really good examples I've seen of this in the past year, mostly on TikTok, sometimes on Instagram. One of the first I remember is this product called the Repaint Tray. where the founder talked about how when she was painting her house, she would use the roller and the tray, but always have all this paint that would dry up or be messy or just in some way probably be wasted, because by the time she was done painting a wall, she either maybe couldn't put it back in the can or was just going to be like too dried up to use like maybe day over day if it was a multi-day job.
Hey, I'm Billy, and I created this crazy thing called the repaint tray. I'm a mom of two and an avid DIYer, and I know the struggle of what it's like when you're trying to paint and do a DIY project with little kids around. I got sick of all the plastic paint tray liners that I was going through and all the waste that it was creating, and I wanted something reusable. When I realized there was nothing like it on the market, I decided to invent my own. Plus, I couldn't find anything with a lid on it to be able to keep my paint fresh when I needed to set it aside. It has been a complete up and down journey over the last 2 years of me trying to work on this and bring it to the market. I have gone through several different prototypes just to try and make this perfect.
So she talked about the process of, what if I just got a silicone cover to put on the tray to keep the paint wet, to keep it from drying out so that I could use all of that. And she talked about how she designed it, put it together, some of the challenges within production and design, and then here's the final product. It's just a standalone piece of content, but I've seen variation of it a couple times. Another version of this I've seen more recently, also a Chicago-based brand, is Good Foods. That's Goode. And it's a Black-owned canned vegetable brand in Chicago that you can find in a lot of the stores around that area. And the content I've seen has been just literally in a slideshow of, here's the story of my dad, of where he worked, the idea he got, and how he started building this brand and kind of taking a risk and a gamble, and how each subsequent success led to new challenges. How do we keep up with production? What happens when the pandemic happens? How do we get through that? But those pieces standalone have gone through that full kind of compelling journey aspect of storytelling to bring people in.
Do you support American family-owned business? Do you still enjoy yourself a good old canned bean and vegetable? Well, I want to introduce myself. My name is Andrew Johnson. I'm the second generation owner of Good Foods Canned Beans and Vegetables. We are a family-owned business based out of Chicago, Illinois. My father started this company. You can see on the bottom right of this can. We originally started with the mission of bringing better nutrition and eradicating disease through proper consumption and education. First, we started out by selling to all the WIC centers around the city of Chicago. Then it evolved into retail. If you eat good, you feel good.
I don't remember necessarily seeing this brand when I lived in Chicago. That was a long time ago, but certainly next time I go, like, I want to take a look around, see if they're on the shelf wherever I happen to be at. Another one I remember seeing on TikTok maybe about a year ago was the creator Simone Gertz. She created some foldable hangers. Not the only person to do that, but this is the one I remember off the top of my head. How do you be more efficient in like your closet and home space? Because a hanger takes up a bunch of like vertical space, right? So she showed the design process for making her coat hingers. Like, here's the different prototypes, here's the challenges, and then once I got to something I liked, here's the process of going through and getting it produced. Because she's already an established creator, I think she had a much easier path to success than maybe some of the other small startup brands, but the storytelling was there.
I want to hang clothes on the wall, but I don't like how far out it comes from the wall. So I just made this prototype. So you fold it.
And another one that just popped into my head that I think has done a really interesting job of this kind of more engaging, I wouldn't necessarily call this building in public, but just really good content marketing that's somewhat related, is the brand Craig Hill that makes things like scissors and staplers and little physical objects. What I saw just this past weekend was about scissors and how a lot of modern scissors have like silicone handles and the blade isn't connected to the scissor, and all the challenges that that introduces and how it makes them crummy and not work as well as they should. So they talk about, here's how we're going to redesign and make them all be one piece of metal, kind of the way scissors classically were. They're maybe a little ugly because those silicone handles look like crap, so you throw them in a drawer. So here's the way we went through to make these more visually appealing. So you'd put it like on a shelf, on a wall, on a desk, so it's something you want to look at. Here's all the different ways that the things that we've done to make the production and the process be more effective results in a better product for you.
The handles of these scissors are bending before the cutting is actually happening because The metal blade is only seated about a half an inch into the handle. This is like the first quality compromise that they make, and it's the first thing that we wanted to correct. Instead of having this two-part construction, we kind of went back to scissors that you'd see in your grandparents' toolbox. The blade through the loop of the handle is one solid piece of metal. There's no weak spot where you're going to have that kind of flex and flimsiness. The second quality compromise is materials. The blade, which is stamped out of thin sheet metal, you can like pretty easily pry them apart. You're cutting through the blister pack and it like kind of twists on you. This solid metal form gives you this wider spine that is way more rigid. It's going to have consistent in-plane shear force to have precise cuts. Third quality compromise is aesthetics. These are so ugly. We always hide them in drawers. So we decided to celebrate the tool. We used this red ceramic paint, which is a super durable finish, and we did this vinyl dip handle that gives it like a little bit more grip, but also this beautiful primary colorway. They're a reminder to us to not cut corners with the design and manufacturing our products so that we don't end up with something like this.
I feel like their stuff is a little expensive, but still, like, I would be more interested in getting that if I was maybe buying a gift for someone, right? So going back to the Reddit post and this couple who is making bespoke handbags. I don't think building in public is going to solve all of their marketing problems, but I do think if they figure out some of those things that we talked about a little bit earlier, how do they stand apart in the category? Where are their people going to be? How do they get in front of them with a compelling reason to notice and consider this particular brand? If they can figure those things out and they can dedicate some time to producing content on a regular basis, that's not just about look at this product, you should buy it, but here's everything that went into why we thought about designing the product like this. Here's everything we went into creating this brand. Here's what we stand to lose if this fails. I don't care about the channel. That's the type of stuff that brings people in and gets them interested and helps a small brand like that grow. Also, I think the good news on this style of content marketing and building in public, like you can literally do it with this. You don't need the lights, you don't need the professional audio. I think you just need a good story and you need to be just like a good editor. But luckily, you can edit on this. Instagram has a great editing app. TikTok has a pretty good interface. A lot of people use CapCut. There's been some things in the terms of service recently that have maybe shy away from it. But you don't have to edit stuff on a desktop the way that I do. You can do it all on the phone, so long as you have a good, propelling story and you have those stakes set up that are answered by additional things within your content. I think you can make some stuff that's going to get people interested. And every success you have, you can continue to build on, and you can reinvest in the tools that you have, the people you have that do it with you. You can bring that type of storytelling into influencer partnerships that you have. So the influencer on your behalf isn't just talking about, look how great this product is. They're talking about, here's the story of this brand and why it resonates with me, and here's why I like it so much. Don't you want to buy it too? I think there's been a lot more marketing think pieces and creators talking about how it's not enough just to have a flashy image of your product to sell something. People don't care about that anymore, especially within the social platforms. The common thing they all talk about is people want to see stories. They want to hear stories. How do you bring people in and tell them that story of your product or brand? It's not just about, look how good this thing works. Here's how you set it up. Here's the box we ship it into you. It's getting more in the weeds of, here's why I'm doing this. Here's the opportunity I saw, or the gap in the current offerings that I saw that frustrated me because of X, Y, or Z. That's what compelled me to think about this particular brand or product and make these steps and develop this thing. Aren't you more interested in checking it out? Thanks for listening. As always, I really appreciate all the feedback and comments I get. If you would like, please leave a review on Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts. That does help other people find this show. If you have a question for me, send me an email to brandsaucepod@gmail.com. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. I occasionally post on Blue Sky as well. I also have a free ebook on my website about marketing in tough financial times, which feels fairly relevant right now. Sign up for my mailing list. I'll send you that for free. I probably should be selling that thing for money, but I want you to have it. We'll talk to you next time. But until then, keep it smart, keep it spicy. Thanks, everyone. Bye.